Hello, everyone. This week you're going to be finishing up uh, Unit 4 or Module 4, and then we will begin the fifth unit. If we take a look at it, it's Unit 5 is what we will be starting this week. And in this unit, you'll learn about making decisions. So there are three types of algorithms in programming. And so, what is an algorithm? To remind you, in programming, an algorithm is a step by step procedure of precise instructions, or if you'd rather use the word code, that performs some calculations or computations. All of our programming tasks should be considered problems that we are trying to solve. There are three types of algorithms. Up to this point, you've only used the first type, which is sequential. Let me fix that spelling error. So sequential is just a list of instructions we execute from the top down, from the top of our program down, one line at a time. This unit introduces something called selection. So with selection, this will allow you to choose what instructions to execute from one or more options. And then the last type of algorithm, which we won't cover yet, is called repetition. And that's where we're going to repeat instructions until a condition goes false in most cases. Also in this unit, we'll be learning how to create Boolean conditions. Boolean conditions are statements that evaluate to true or false. That's the only option. Typically, when the condition evaluates to true, we'll execute a chunk of code, and when the condition evaluates to false, we will not execute that chunk of code. This will allow us to choose which instructions we want to execute. And then we're also going to learn about some Boolean operators, the AND, this is the symbol, and the OR, this is the symbol. In fact, that's the key above your enter or return key, the vertical lines. That will allow us to create more complicated Boolean conditions. So I've written a short program for us to talk about, and I have created a Boolean variable called true. I'm going to comment out some of this stuff for now. All right, so this is how we make a Boolean variable answer, and I'm setting it to true. It can only be set to true or to false. So for right now, I'm just gonna, let me save that. Okay, all right. So in this unit, you'll learn how to make Boolean statements. And we do that by saying if. So if this condition is true, then the code inside of these curly brackets will execute. The curly brackets are located northwest of the enter key. They are above the square bracket key. So if this condition is true, if answer is equal to true, notice that we use two equal signs. We need to do this when we're making a Boolean statements of equality. So that's different than an assignment statement like above. So if you're ever writing a statement like this, remember, for checking for equality, for Booleans, ints, or doubles, use the double equal. So if the condition is true, which it is, answer is true, we're going to print answer is true, which we did below. Now, in addition to equality operators, we have some other things that we call relational operators to make comparisons for primitive types, meaning the ints, the doubles, and the Booleans. And those are the symbols less than or greater than, less than or equal to, because we don't have the other math symbol with the greater than and the line underneath. Less than or equal to, we already talked about equal. And then we have this exclamation point equal, and this exclamation point stands for not. So if something is not equal, this is the relational operator that we use. So let me uncomment this. So I've created a couple of variables, x and y. They're both 15. And I've written a little chunk of code here that I want to study. So sometimes instead of just having one if statement, I can have more conditions and I string them together in the same block by adding the word if. So the way we read this, we say, so this one we're checking to see if x is bigger than y. So we say if x is greater than y, then we execute this code and we print the statement, x is bigger than y. Else, so here we are checking for another condition. If y is greater than x, we would print y is bigger than x. Else, if it's not greater than, if x is not greater than y and y is not greater than x, then they must be equal, which they are to start. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. And we get x and y are equal. So let's now make x bigger and test the other parts of our code. And now x is bigger than y. And now let's text the other branch. And when I test that, I for sure get y is bigger than x. So whenever we write a selection statement like this, where we have multiple conditions that we're checking, we should always test all the different situations to make sure they're working right, like we did, because we have 1, 2, 3 different situations that depend on these values. Also, I highly, highly recommend that with each Boolean condition that you put underneath a set of curly brackets so you can clearly define what code goes with what Boolean condition. Now, if we want to compare objects like strings, we have to use something called the dot equals or the compare to, and that's the last part of my code. So I have created 3 strings, hello, bye, and hello. So in the first set of code, I'm checking to see if string 1 equals string 2. And we know they're not. So this should print, this should not print anything, because if the condition is false, which it is, we bypass this code and we continue on to the next program statement, which happens to be another if statement. So this time we're checking if string 1 is equal to string 3, which it is. So we should print string 1 equals string 3. So let's go ahead and run that. And I've uncommented that. And you can see that is in fact what has happened. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of code to get you started and a few comments about that. So please let me know if you have any questions, and have a great week.